Hello.
Hi.
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 Hello.
I'm curious about
Building open, authentic, loving relationship.
I'm curious about jealousy.
I'm curious about polyamory.
Does it just mean that you're fucking all the time?
How can I tell my parents that my partner is already married?
I'm curious about
How do you know when you're too busy to have another relationship?
I'm curious about dominant and subordinate relationships.
I'm curious about sexual health.
How can relationships evolve with people as they grow and change?
There's so many reasons why we should be doing it. And I'm thinking, well, then if there are all those reasons why we should be doing it, then why aren't we doing it?
Welcome to the Curious Fox podcast for those challenging the status quo in love, sex, and relationships. My name is Effy Blue.
And I'm Jacqueline Misla. And today we are talking about masturbation because it is Masturbation Month.
My favorite thing about May.
Yeah, I love masturbation. Well, I have a love-hate relationship with masturbation. We're going to talk about that. But what I hate, there's no love there, is the name masturbation.
Yeah.
I think it is the worst sounding word in the history of words. Nobody's like, I want to masturbate. Like, there's just so many like letters and sounds in that sound so terrible. And almost every Western language uses some version of that word. So go out there into the world now and Google it. Google masturbation in several languages, and you will see that it's just different. It's like masturbation, masturbate. Like, it's just all
Masturbation.
Exactly. except for like the Swedes and the Norwegians and the Danish. Like, they have chosen different words, and some folks in like the East. But the rest of us picked the worst word ever.
I know. I think, wasn't it last year or something where like the worst word in the world was moist? And I'm like, I don't really care about moist, but I hear you on masturbation. Yeah. And the reason why all the Western world says masturbation, because it has the roots in Latin. In Latin, it's literally masturbation. And then all the Western languages have picked that up. Yes. And obviously, it's such a taboo subject. Okay, this is something. So how words change, right? We look at the original, and because they get used and used and used, and over time, they adapt and they change, and then we get the language that we have today. Masturbation is so taboo that we haven't spoken about it since the Romans. So it's just stayed untouched.
It's exactly the same
It's
word.
exactly the same.
True. It's so terrible. And honestly, what is as terrible to me is like the other things that we call it, like jerking off and wanking and like all the things. I'm not a fan of any of those things.
I am kind of a fan of wank. Like, I do like the word wank, and I like it because it's like, if to me it's a little subversive, because wanking is a very male word. Like, especially in the UK where I grew up, it's boys who wank. And over the years, girls start saying it. And I like the idea of just using that word, which was kind of colonized by boys and men. And I like saying, now I'm going to go and have a wank. It just feels subversive. So like, that's how I roll. So I like wank. But yeah, masturbation, it's just like there's nothing sexy about it. And jerk off, bleh.
I know. We need to come up with a new word. We should ask ChatGPT. Someone ask the AI to come up with a better word than masturbation.
I love that idea.
Wank is silly. Masturbation sounds just like not like harsh, and I don't like it. And so wide call out. Let's have a contest. Whoever comes with the best word. I don't know what the prize will be. The prize will be renaming the word for the rest of history.
Yes.
But please do that because it's terrible.
Yes.
Hate the name. Love the practice though. The practice, very little complaints about that.
Why do you love it so much?
Because it's not more as much love as need. I think that if I did not do it, I believe that I would likely explode into pieces. The best way that I can picture it in my mind is, I don't know if you've seen like those like cartoon like whistles where like it starts like heating up and then like the top of it like pops open. It's like, like the whistle like blows and it's like shaking. Like that would be me. Like if I never did it, I think I would just like it, like all of the like the blood flow and sexual energies was like build up in my body, and then like the top of my head would like pop off and I'd be like,
that's so funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of flow happening. There's just a lot happening in my body. So I think truly The biggest reason is like physiological. I don't even need to necessarily even be turned on. It doesn't need to be, I can masturbate with and finish within 60 seconds.
Nice.
I can probably time myself.
Very efficient.
I can do it without touching myself. I can do it almost anywhere.
Nice.
Like it is become a way, just a normal way of me kind of regulating. I think I use it to like calm my nerves.
Calm your nerves. That's like how 17th century of you. Well, you have hysteria?
Yes, exactly.
Masturbation recommended.
I am a hysterical woman.
Exactly.
Yes, I think people, I'm sure many people over the course of my life would have called me hysterical woman. If you do not know what we're talking about, you should also Google that. Add that to your Google list for today. I think it started in like ancient Egypt, and then of course like the Greeks had all sorts of analysis about it around hysteria being this condition, a medical condition that was recognized for like thousands of years, and it was blamed for all of the issues that were happening with women, that there was something that was happening within our womb. Our womb is like an animal that needed to be tamed, and if it was not tamed, then it could cause to nervousness, to stomach pains, to lunacy. We could go crazy. And so the Greeks like defined what it was, and then the Brits like did something about it. The Brits decided it was something that needed medical care. And eventually needed a vibrator. Yeah, that was actually the origins of the vibrator.
Love it. Right, it was a pelvic massage. Right, it was pelvic. It's like the pelvic massage, and then the doctors started getting crampy hands, and then the industrious Brits.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and then the industrious Brits were like, "We're gonna make a machine for this."
It's 100% right. Women were like, they were everything from like depressed to like, which I'm sure they were just like fainting on their like lounge chairs, like,
Did somebody say just a pelvic massage?
No. Right, exactly. Oh, and then there was like so many women going to the doctor, like, I have hysteria. And then they were all getting like, pelvic massages from the doctors. And the doctors were like, our hands can't take this. And they created then the vibrator. But yes, clearly I would be one of those women. I would be hysterical, I think, if I did not have it. So that's the first, is it does feel super like physiological. I could just like hear a word. I probably could be reading an article and read the word sex, and something in my body will turn on and be like, well, do you want to? I mean, do you have a few minutes? Like, that's the dialogue that happens immediately in my mind. It's like, I think you can squeeze it in. The other, I think, is psychological. I think that it is something particularly that I realized that I started to feel whenever I was feeling jealous or territorial, which is a complete mindfuck, by the way, to be like picturing my partner with someone else, with like my metamor, and feeling simultaneous, like twisted up jealousy, territorialism, like just like all the angst, but then also kind of feeling
turned on
again. Kind of feeling again like that voice in my head being like, well, I mean, you have a few minutes. And it wasn't, I think it messed with me for a very long time. At first, my theory was that it was like self-soothing, that the feeling of being jealous and thinking about my partner with somebody else was so overwhelming that my body was like, shh, here, just do this.
Hysteria
calm
again.
down. You'll be fine. Exactly. It was hysteria. Right. My womb was going crazy, and like I needed something to like tame it. So it was that. But then I think we had a conversation. I think it was the episode that we did with Dr. Jolie, and she talked about, I think I mentioned this, and I think she referenced that it may have to do with mate value, which was something that we had a conversation with David Buss about, Dr. Buss, about mate value. And if you think your mate is a 5 or a 6 or a 7 or an 8 or 9, 10, and like the more value they have, the more like attracted you are, the more you want them in their life. And that somehow picturing them with someone else like upped their mate value percentage. And that was the thing that I was turned on by. Like, oh, wow. It's like having a toy that other kids now covet. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Maybe I want that toy back. I think it was like that. It was like, oh, you like my partner? Well, then. And then my womb went crazy and it became hysterical, and I needed to do something about it.
Nice. Those are all legit reasons to masturbate, for sure. I love them.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I mean, your reasons kind of resonate with me for sure. I started really early. I started like, I don't know. I remember as early as like 5. I got caught masturbating by my dad of all people at 6. Awkward.
Oh,
awkward. Yeah, no, not fun.
Did he just like back out slowly and like
he just like
the door?
Like span on the point. He was like just spun around and walked away. That was his reaction to it, which I'm grateful for because I didn't want to explain what I was doing. But yeah, I got caught.
You would have like exploded from a different reason, from just like embarrassment. You would have just like popped.
Yeah. And then I kind of kept up with it because it's like, you know, my vulva and I are besties, and I've always just enjoyed that me time, that us time, that I really enjoyed. But honestly, these days, like all of the things that you're saying resonate with me. But I think these days is like masturbation is political for me, just because where we are in our history. I think I've arrived at a place where I think of masturbation as like anti-capitalist, because it's like sex sells, right? That's the thing. And sex is used to sell us so many things, right? And the way that it works is that essentially sex sells any product by positioning the product as a gateway, as an access to sex. Like that's essentially why sex sells. So like if you have these pair of jeans, you're going to be more sexy and then you're going to get more sex. Or, you know, if you wear this perfume, all the men are going to be attracted to you and you're going to get sex, right? So like essentially every product is positioned to you as a gateway to sex, as a access to sex.
And sex is not a means to the end. Sex is then stability. You're going to lure the man over with your good smellingness, which will lead to sex, which will then lead to stability, because then they're going to father your children and buy you a house.
Exactly, and provide for you. That's kind of the message for women, right? And I think for men, it's like, then you're like a stud, like you're putting it out there, you're a stud. And then that's our broken system and society. And also I think sex is power, right? So that's the other thing. Like it's not just like you get sex, but it's like sex is power. So it's like next step from that. So all this stuff is going on. And I just feel like masturbation cuts through all of that, right? Like masturbation is your free ticket to sex and sexuality and pleasure. So fuck capitalism, excuse my French. I just think it's a very anti-capitalist thing to do. I don't know why I arrived at this point, but I feel very strongly about it. Like it's one of my things. I masturbate for many reasons, and then when I'm done, and I give myself a pat on the back for being like anti-capitalist. Like, it's just like aligns with my values, okay?
So great. Yes, the shirt should be like "fuck capitalism" by fucking yourself. Like I think that's the new motto. Yeah, or just like masturbation is anti-capitalist is a good T-shirt to have. I think I might make one and just walk around in it. I think it'll raise questions, which I like, and then it'll be good conversation that I would be interested in getting into. That's that. And on that note, I haven't really stopped that. On that note, I also think it's especially these days, it is an act of defiance. I really do. I think sexuality as we know it, like most of sexuality, especially female sexuality, is presented to us through the male gaze, right? So vast majority of what we consider as sexy is through the male gaze. Even ourselves, when we look at ourselves in the mirror, and what makes us decide if we're sexy or not are the images that we've seen, that we compare ourselves to. Inevitably, it's like, you can't not do this. So a lot of what's written in our psyche about sex and sexuality and sexy is through the male gaze. And I think masturbation cuts through all of that and puts you in direct contact with your body. And you can decide what sexy is. You can decide, I feel sexy through this. Like the sexuality in me looks like this, feels like this, and isn't potentially influenced by all the other things that we get influenced by when it comes to sexuality. So I also think that masturbation is an act of defiance. It's one of the ultimate acts of defiance. I would go as far as that. So again, aligns with my values. See, that feels very, for me, it's like, I need to do it all die. And I need to do it to like deal with jealousy. And then you just take it to the next step and you're like, it's anti-capitalist and defiant. I love that. I wonder now for the rest of the world who is not either going to burst into flames, needs to deal with jealousy, or wants to fuck the patriarchy. Why is masturbation good for us?
Yes. Well, we know masturbation is actually super healthy, right? These are the things they don't tell us, right? This is what it's also like goes along with my act of defiance thing. Do you remember those things that you get told? Like you get hairy palms, or you'll go blind if you masturbate too much, right?
Yes.
So like that's what we get told. And nobody tells you actually masturbation is really, really healthy, right? They don't tell you that when you masturbate, you release a bunch of feel-good hormones, right? We're looking at dopamine, endorphins, testosterone, prolactin, like beautiful hormones that just make you feel calm and motivated and stress relief, and it like increases and sustains your sex drive. Exactly, that's why you do it, right? Prolactin like increases your immune system. Like this is like, it's like anti-COVID. Masturbation is essentially anti-COVID.
That was not something that I was prescribed. That is fair. Yes, that is true. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is all of the good, nice feelings. For me, it is that and helps me sleep.
Yes. Great option for insomnia.
Yes. And I want to ask you if you ever had this experience. This is like a side note. Like, okay, I'm tired, end of the day, like, I need to sleep, can't sleep. I'm like, all right, let's do this thing. Like, hopefully this will help. Kind of getting into it and then like lose it. Like either lose it because I'm too tired or lose it because like something else, like I get distracted and I start thinking about something else and I'm like, God damn it. And then I have to like get back to it again. And at some point I'm just like, enough now. Like I've tried a few times. This is not working out, which is very unlike me. And I just move on. That is the worst. Like right before bed to try to like use that as a tool to help you sleep. And it just makes you further exasperated. Not a fan of that.
I hear you. That happens to me if I'm what I call tired and wired. That's when I'm like physically tired, but mentally wired. And when I'm in that state, definitely tired and wired. And then trying to like masturbate in that state. You know, it's also like masturbate, meditate. I think masturbation can be meditation. And I think just like in that state, I would find it really hard to meditate. It's the same idea, like staying on track, you know, same. Like if I'm tired and wired, definitely masturbation is hard. But if you can make it work, it will put you to sleep. Beautiful, soft, gentle, snoozy, gorgeous land of Nod. So
like lulls you.
Totally.
Rocks you to sleep gently. Sings lullabies in your ear.
Exactly. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And there's like medical benefits. Like we know that it decreases chances of prostate cancer in men. Scientifically proven. Right? So totally. And also it is good for combating premature ejaculation. So if you're somebody who has problems with that, you know, masturbate, edge, hang out there, keep increasing that time. And it's a great prescribed, scientifically proven solution or a suggestion or potential cure for combating premature ejaculation. That's true.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna do a hat trick with that. A third one for menopausal women. As your sex drive is going down, if you keep masturbating, you will sustain your sex drive. Because if you don't use it, you lose it. So I think what happens a lot is women stop having sex for various reasons as they hit menopause. And as they lose their sex drive, they actually stop having sex and they also stop masturbating. If you can actually carry on masturbating, almost like an act of self-care, which is we're going to talk about in a minute, something that you do as a ritual, something that you do as, you know, as if you would go into the gym, as you would go and eat well, you masturbate on a regular basis throughout menopause, you will sustain your sex drive. Scientifically proven. So that's like 3 medical benefits.
As you were saying that, it made me think of, I remember my partner once telling me that she would masturbate before going out on a date, or particularly going to see somebody that she was like trying not to hook up with, either because it was too soon in their relationship or because like, you know, it was towards the end, like in this one particular case, like it was towards the end and she was like trying to end it, but the person kept like luring her in with like, why don't you come over? Let's give you something to drink. And then like they'd be having sex. So she would like make sure as much as possible, all the way up until when she was going to leave, to like drain as much of it from her body so that this way she could be fully present and you know, emotionally intelligent when they were together. See, it helps your body. It helps your mind. I think, you know, I have been thinking about the fact that for me, the other piece is like, it helps me stay connected to my body. I think that I have been somebody who lives in my head all of the time. And really, it is one of the only places, you know, apart from being in partnered sex, and even then, where I'm just like in my actual body. And that has been something that has felt really like self-discovery and kind of just like connection, and that has felt really healing for me in lots of ways.
I think that also extends into like I do think that masturbation is also, is a path to sexual liberation. The more that you know about yourself, the more you can spend time with your fantasies, your desires, and you allow pleasure along with them, connected with your body. It will liberate you sexually. It will get rid of some of the shame that comes with our desires, our fantasies. And over time, it will also give you clarity in a way that you can talk to your partners about it. If you're struggling to, when somebody says, what do you like? And you're one of those people that says, I don't know. And there's so many of those people. Honestly, masturbation, like taking your time masturbating and really reflecting on the experience and growing from that and learning from it will lead to sexual liberation. I 100% believe that.
Yeah. I knew we were going to talk about this today, and I was both, like I think I said in the beginning, it was like a love-hate situation. Like I love this topic because I just don't think we talk about it enough, and it has played such a big role in my life. But I hate it both because of the word masturbation, but also because there has been so much shame wrapped around it for me. And as I was thinking about, as you're saying this, there's so many reasons why we should be doing it. And I'm thinking, well, then if there are all those reasons why we should be doing it, then why aren't we doing it? And why I think you are the master of, the etymology of the word and the physiology of what's happening in your body and all those things. What I'm good at, the place where I shine, is shame and trauma, and how that has that's where I have tons of stories to share. But like you, it's interesting, you mentioned or doing it early. I remember super early, super young, before I knew what it was or that it was bad. It was akin to me as like, you have an itch and you scratch it. Like there was just something, like there's this feeling and you attend to the feeling. And I remember I was in elementary school and I remember telling my mom about it. I remember very specifically like going up to her and saying like, there's this, sometimes I get this tingling and then the tingling makes me want to, touch the spot where it's tingling. And I remember she was reading the newspaper and I remember she put the newspaper down, turned to me and looked at me and said, "That's disgusting." And like my little girl, like all those little bits of me that were like vulnerable and looking for connection and looking for guidance, and looking for understanding, just like shattered.
That's so sad.
And I remember at the time too, I was dealing with, it was like the beginning buds of some like anxiety and depression that was happening for me. And I remember saying to her, there are other things that I think about that now you will never know. Like those like kind of dark thoughts and some of that other stuff that had begun to creep up at a young age. I remember saying like, oh, if you can't be trusted with this, I didn't say this, but like essentially if you can't be trusted with that, but I said to her, like, there are other things that I think about that now you'll never know. And so that was like the very early age. I remember being young like you and kind of being caught, if you will, to the point that my mom used to do bed checks and would like come into the room to see if my hands were above the sheets. Like to like check on me. And so super early, it was like, I don't even know what this is. I don't know what a word is. I don't know what it means, but I know that it's bad. And then of course, religion comes in. And then of course, now not only is it bad, but it is going to damn my soul for all of eternity. And that was incredible struggle throughout my adolescence because I was going through puberty and all of the feelings and all of the things. And I'm not supposed to mess around with anybody. I'm not supposed to have sex with anybody because that's also bad. But I can't do anything with those feelings either with myself because that is also bad. And, I've told this story before, but there was at some point where it was such a challenge for me to stop in my teenage years that I remember making a promise with God and saying, every time I do it, however many children I'm supposed to have, take away one of those children. If I'm supposed to have 3, if I masturbate again, only give me 2. If I'm supposed to have 3, and because I thought that was like the only ultimatum, like that was the thing that would stop me. And then of course, when I did it again, I was distraught because I thought to myself, I've just killed my future child. Like my inability to have any self-control has killed my future child.
That's really dark and sad.
Yeah. That's a real reason not to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think just religion just screws up. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we go down that rabbit hole. I think it'll be a long and dark and deviation from what we're talking about. But the fact that religion that's supposed to be about faith and goodness having these kind of results really saddens me.
Yeah. Well, and it isn't about, it was right. It wasn't about faith. It's not about, the higher power. It's not about my body. It was about religion. And if this resonates with you, you should listen to the Easter special the conversation that we had with Deandra Blaylock Johnson, where we talk about sex in the Bible, because those types of understandings have been incredibly helpful and healing for me. So first it was, shame from my mom in particular, and, my family and culture, and shame from the church. And then as I got older, it became more around shame, like with gender role, because we talk a lot about, at least in the States, constantly about like boys, masturbating.
Wanking,
like there are jokes about it. It's in the movies, right? They're wanking all over the place. There's like jokes about like socks that are stiff, in the room, and there are jokes about their whole movies, like American Pie. There's just so much that surrounds male masturbation, but there is no conversation, illustration, visualization, anything about women. And I just felt like it was something that I shouldn't be doing, even as a grown, like as a married woman. I would have sex, and then afterwards, because I do have such a high libido and so much sexual energy, like I could have kept going, but like we were done with partnered sex. And so I was like, okay. And I would like wait for him to go to the bathroom to like clean up, and I would like quickly like do it just to like get the rest of the energy out of my body. But it would be like quiet. I became very good at like stealth masturbation. Like I could lay right next to you and you would never know. I'm like silent and still. I'm like ninja. I'm a ninja masturbator.
Ninja masturbator.
But that, I am. I'm like a ninja. That's like a superpower. But it came out of necessity. It became because I was too embarrassed to let anybody know, even the person I was married with that I just was having sex with. I was too embarrassed to let them know that my sexual energy was so much that wasn't enough, that it felt like insatiable. It felt too much, and it felt like I would hurt their feelings. And so I just was like stealth about it.
It's funny. The first time I saw female masturbation on screen was the movie Secretary with James Spader and Maggie Gyllenhaal in the early 2000s. It's such an amazing movie for me. I can do a whole episode on that movie, and we won't do it right now. But it was the first time I saw a woman masturbating on screen, real masturbation, not like porn, but like actual kind of getting into it. And I remember seeing that scene and going, wow, you don't see that very often. Since then, there's been a few like, controversial scenes. But like you said, how many movies are based their entire storyline on boys masturbating? Yes. Never mind like one scene, but entire storylines. So yeah, I think absolutely there's so much gender shaming around masturbation, and how it's like it's okay for boys to do it, but you don't ever see it. You don't even get the message. It's not okay for women to masturbate. It's just erased. The idea of masturbation, women don't even live together. It's just erasure.
Exactly. It's even worse, right? It's worse than saying this is not a good thing. For it to be non-existent at all, just lets you know in advance, I can't even, this is not even something that they're trying to stop me from doing. I shouldn't have even been doing it in the first place. Like they're not even trying to stop me because I shouldn't even be doing it. Right. One of the first times that I remember seeing it on screen was in Black Swan.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was the next one that came along.
Which is a great scene, that whole moment. But what's interesting to me is that was a part of her like decline towards being bad, if you will, which ultimately leads in like her death. Yeah. So I like mixed feelings about it, like appreciation that it's up on screen, you know, like great, all the things, Mila Kunis, and and yes to all of it, 10 out of 10. But it is a part of her
decline,
psychological and moral decline that again leads to her death. So
for sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. There aren't that many healthy, fun, light, the way that we think about boys masturbating, depictions of women masturbating at all. And I think the other part of it with the erasure is that you feel alone, like because we're doing it, we're all doing it, like all the women are, all the girls are doing, all the women are doing it, but because we don't see it anywhere and nobody talks about it, it's only a very lonely experience for a lot of people. They don't. We talk about visibility all the time. We talk about all sorts of visibility, and I think female masturbation visibility is also super important.
Yeah. And it, certainly because of the stuff that we do, I listen to lots of podcasts and read a lot of books on it. And there's not a lot of conversation, like even within adults within the sex positive community, there's not a lot of conversations around masturbation.
Absolutely. I went to a William Alanson White Institute conference for therapists, for sex, like therapists who are interested in sex therapy. The whole theme of it was sex. And I was really the only non-therapist in the room. A therapist friend of mine invited me, and I was like, sure, I'll go and see what they're talking about. So it was like a conference hall full of therapists, sex therapists and therapists that are interested in sex and being sex therapists and supporting their clients about sex. And all the topics were being talked about. And at no point people mentioned masturbation where it was the obvious path where the conversation is going. It's exactly, they were talking about, you know, shame, for example, people not knowing their own pleasure and having issues with their bodies. And like, the answer is masturbation. The answer is masturbation, and nobody would talk about it. So at some point, of course, I put my hand up and I was just like, is there a reason why we're not talking about masturbation? And everyone kind of like went really awkward, and some people kind of started looking at the floor. And then a few, of course, like spoke up with me, and they were like, yeah, let's talk about masturbation. I'm like, yes. And these people are therapists. Like they are in charge of our mental health. They're in charge of supporting us through some of these darker issues that we have about our sex and sexuality. And even they weren't prepared to talk about masturbation. So it's this like crazy ass taboo subject, almost as taboo as like kink and fetish. And it is the most natural out of all of those things. That's where we all start. We all start with masturbation. Yet that is the one topic we don't feel comfortable talking about.
Yeah, I agree with you. And honestly, on all ends, right? On the end of doing it and feeling good about it, or not doing it and not wanting to. You know, I'm thinking about folks who are asexual, and that may not be something that they need or are interested in. And also the myth that if you're asexual and don't want to engage in partnered sex, that doesn't also mean that you don't masturbate and want to touch yourself.
True.
Like there's no defining a person and what they need and what they want. And when we don't talk about it, we create these boxes of silence for folks that I think is what you and I are saying, like we need to be pushing back on.
Absolutely. For sure. Okay. So we talked about why we do it. We talked about why we don't do it. How can we actually do it? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how do we break this? How do we get out of this situation, and how do we do it?
All right. Well, let me ask you, wait, are you talking about like, how do we feel self-empowered and like create the environment for ourselves to do it? Or like literally like, do you use your hand or a pillow, or like, what's the question? We can definitely talk about that.
There are so many different ways. I know that this is a thing. I know this is a fascination for you, like all the different ways that people actually masturbate.
Yes, because I think because I was so consumed about my own like push and pull with it my entire life that I really had not considered much other people doing it, let alone how they did it. And so then when I started to be around, you know, partners, both male and female and non-binary and folks seeing how they did it, again, particularly for me, cis women, because I was looking at the way that they were moving their body and I was like, oh, that's what you're doing? Like when I was seeing, you know, someone with a penis, I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like it's all interesting to me because I don't have a penis. But seeing someone with a vulva masturbate, I was like, oh, interesting. So you use a pillow or a stuffed animal, or you lay on your back, or you lay on your side, or you like move your underwear and like push it was just, I'm fascinated by all of the thousands of ways that we have figured out how to do this thing. And I did not, like, it helped me become more creative because I had like my way of doing it. You know what I mean? Sure. A plus B equals C. Like I was like, pull this lever, push this button, done. Then I'd be like, wait, what are you doing over there? Oh, what's that? And I'm like, let me try that. And I've now figured out some new avenues, some new pathways to see that I didn't even know were possible.
For sure. Yeah. Do you know, I'm actually one of those people. Like I'm a humper. Like when I was younger, I was a pillow humper. Like that was my favorite, on my tummy, humping a pillow. Like that was how I rolled.
Yes.
And then I'll tell you what changed my style is mutual masturbation, because it's not fun to hump a pillow with a partner. So I actually started to like experiment, and I mean, I was masturbating all sorts of ways, but really started to think about varying my style and realizing I have varied style and how it would work in different situations was with partners. And I'm a big fan of mutual masturbation. I think there's so much. First of all, I think it's incredibly intimate. I think it's more intimate than regular sex. Hands down, without a doubt, mutual masturbation is one of the most intimate things you can do, I think. And, you know, I'll hear any other argument about it, but that's how I feel. And I think
you're like, fight me if you don't agree.
Fight me. But honestly, I can't think of anything more personally. Maybe it's different. Maybe people who like love to masturbate here and there, everywhere, they don't really care. It's just like a thing they can do. For me, I think mutual masturbation is one of the most intimate things you can do. And I think there's so much like interest and value there, and so much closeness there, and so much to learn from that. And like also super curious in the same way that you're talking about. I'm like, that's how we masturbate? That's awesome. And so with that is how I was like, okay, so I actually need to kind of masturbate in ways that is like partner friendly.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, okay, I need to vary my style. And it's actually kind of important to vary your style for a couple of reasons. What you don't want to do is you don't want to condition your body to one type of touch or one type of like you said, like pull this lever, press this button, because, you know, we know that neurons that fire together wire together, right? So if you keep doing the same thing, your partner is never going to be able to replicate that, because no one's going to be able to touch you exactly the way that you want to be touched. So I think it's important to like vary your style, just like how to do it well, like how to do masturbation well, like make sure you have varied style, you know? And I think that's also important for parents when they're talking to their kids about masturbation, to explain to them that they should really vary their style, especially boys, because I think one of the things that happen is boys during puberty, they start to masturbate and their grip is actually really important. If they grip too tight or if they're always gripping the same way, no vagina is going to be as tight as your grip. And it's actually once you kind of wire that, when you wire that way, it's going to cause problems down the line with real partners. So one of the best advice you can give to your boys is to get them to vary their masturbation style. Also, like with condom on, with condom off, like light grip, hard grip, left hand, right hand, up grip, down grip. So
with a condom and without a condom.
Yes, so important. So important, because ideally when, you know, your boys are old enough to have sex with girls, you want them to use condoms, and what you don't want to do is, I don't feel pleasure without a condom. Of course you can. You just need to like masturbate with one and figure out how it feels, and you'll just wire your brain as much as you would do without one. So like these are actually really good tips for parents who should be talking to their kids about masturbation.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, and even again, you know, for folks with all body parts, like I've had sex with partners who all forms of activities and positions would happen up until the point of nearing climax. And then there's a particular position that they have to get into, which often mirrors the position they take when masturbating, to be like, okay, we did all the things, that was fun, we built me up to the moment, like now we need to like get into this position to like finish it off. And no shame around that. If you listen, happy to help you in all the ways. But I do think also for me as the partner of somebody in, you know, who I'm having sex with in that way, it kind of limits my ability to be creative and to explore them in different ways, because there's sometimes a little rigidity or ritual around the way it needs to be. So I would like some more exploration, but frankly, that has also helped me realize that so much of how I was treating masturbation was very utilitarian, was buildup of energy, release the energy, or need to go to sleep, or things like that. And a lot of that had to do certainly with the shame that I was unpacking. But trying in my, you know, most recent years to have like longer, more purposeful sessions, you know, of like romantic, like being romantic with myself, you know, creating a space where there's no one going to be around, and there's a big comfortable bed, and the lighting is whatever the things are that make me feel like I don't need to be rushed. I don't need to be secretive about it. I don't need to like, it's not a means to an end. It's an opportunity to just explore. That has helped me then be open to different types of touch from a partner, because I have been willing to explore in that way on my own.
Yeah, I totally hear you. Recently, I've gotten into yoga and masturbation. That's my like most recent thing. Yeah. No, since the beginning of the year, with our listeners who are listening, I was wandering around Asia. I spent time in India, spent time in Bali, and I kind of got into, yoga is something that I've been doing for a long time, but I got into more of the spiritual side of it and different practices of yoga and all that kind of stuff. And I started to dabble in tantra in a more kind of deep kind of way, rather than sort of surface tantra, which we covered on the show as well. And some of the things that were coming up for me that were interesting for me is sort of this ritualistic way of approaching masturbation, and starting with like breath, and starting with using the breath to get embodied and using yoga to really get anchored into my body. Nothing major. Like I'm not doing headstands. That's not the type of yoga I'm talking about. I'm sort of talking about very breath-based, easy movement, yin style yoga where you're kind of resting in positions, but with the breath, you're really getting into your body and not just like getting into your vulva and vagina, but really like looking and experiencing every inch of your body and experiencing the expansion of the breath. And then from there, going into that sexual energy and masturbating from that has just been a kind of an interesting exercise that I've been exploring that I recommend if anybody wants to go there. You're looking at like a good hour, by the way. This is not a quick in and out, you know, I want to have a quick wank before I go to sleep type thing. But it is really kind of taking my time, you know, doing a couple of, you know, sun salutations, sitting, breathing, moving, a lot of cat cows. I found like a really slow, deliberate cat cows to really kind of bring me into my body and connect me to sort of the chakras and eventually to my vulva and starting from that before you even touch myself and then kind of finding my way there. And even then, you know, taking my time, touching myself. It's been a kind of interesting journey that I invite people to have a go at.
That's interesting. I wonder, see, I'm thinking about that for me as it relates to practicing edging more. I think that because, you know, orgasms again, in some ways just felt like a means to an end because it was like physical discomfort if I didn't release that energy, but also it's shameful. So like, hurry up, like get that joint done quick. We got to be in and out of here. There's a sense of urgency, like even in the midst of partner sex and solo sex, like I have to like tell myself like, hey, relax. Like no one's going anywhere. It's okay. Cause it just feels like a race to me. I'm like, hurry, like, let's get there quick. And I'm like, why? Like, this is great. Why am I rushing this? Yeah. So maybe that's something I need to think about too, in terms of my practice with myself, is just like getting myself to a certain place and then back down again, like kind of enjoying all the plateaus and the levels and the layers of it without kind of moving towards a particular end.
Yeah, I recently have a new play partner, and that's something that's come up between us. There's a lot of new relationship energy, so we're kind of in it a lot, and it feels exactly what you're describing, this like race to the end. And we recently have this conversation around like, can we sit with the tension? Like, what happens if we sit with the tension? Like, we are practically cohabiting just because we were traveling together and then we came back, and so we're spending a lot of time together. It's not like we're on the clock and like, you know, we have to go our separate ways. Like, we're both essentially digital nomads. We both work and we're together, you know, a lot of the time, and we kiss and cuddle and go back to work or go on excursions, and sometimes things escalate and it feels like we need to get to the end, whatever that end is. And recently we had this conversation around like, we have all the time in the world. We answer to no one. We've designed our lives to be as free as we can possibly be. And, you know, can that be reflected in the way that we're having sex? Can we just sit with the tension, let the tension be there, and keep building on it and building on it without having to feel like we have to resolve it all the time? And it's just, I think it's the same. Like, I think you can definitely start doing that within your masturbation practice, and then seeing how that translates into your sexual practice, you know, with the partner practice.
Yeah. That makes sense, because to me, the most delicious part of partnered sex is the building. And my favorite thing in the world is like being denied, essentially, like getting like me being like, we have to or else I'll die, and they're like, will you though? Let's see about that. Like that like tension of like, can't get the thing that I want, you know what I mean? Like being held in that space is just so intense. So I love that in partnered sex, but I haven't necessarily done that with myself. Like, I haven't tested myself to be like, all right, let's, do you like this right here? We're going to bring it down a few notches and then see. I got to try it.
Honestly, try with breathing. Like, that's been a big, like one of the big things that I picked up over this like months and months of gallivanting around Asia, Southeast Asia, was a lot to do with breath, which, you know, sounds so simple, yet, you know, so deep and complicated at the same time. And before you even sit down to masturbate or whatever, however you want to masturbate, just like spend some time breathing and seeing what that does to you, and like explore with your hands without even getting into, you know, anywhere, you know, any sort of genital area. But like, as you breathe, like touch your body in a way to just really like get into your body with the breath, and then go into your masturbation practice and see if it feels different.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, for us, it was important for us to spend this month, the better part of an hour, having this conversation because we don't see this conversation. We don't see this, conversation happening in many places. And because I think we talk about, you and I talk about it a lot offline and wanted to, we talk about it all the time. I'm like, how are you? How have you been masturbating? No, it's important to us, like, as people. And so wanting to normalize having the conversation about it, but also to the point of saying it is important enough for us to take seriously and to take some time with it to, not just like, not before bed and like in the quickness of the night, but like, maybe during the day, maybe in the sunlight, maybe you create like a cozy, sexy corner space for you to do that with like comfy pillows. Maybe you do it before sex, maybe do it after sex. Like there's just so many ways in which when you're sad, when you're happy, when you're jealous, I got to tell you, it's helped me a lot through those jealous moments. But just create some space for it. I think for me, that's like the moral of the story is if you find yourself not being able to take that space to do the work and figure out what's going on there, because that's certainly been the case for me, and then push back on that stigma, push back on the man, on capitalism.
Exactly. Masturbation is political, my friends. Masturbation is political.
That's the shirt. Oh, we have so many shirts. We need to open a store now of all the shirts. We're just gonna have a masturbation line of the shirts.
Just a masturbation line, yes. With like for you, like a little like a cartoon whistling castle. Yes. I think that just that, and then let people figure it out. And the episode number.
Yeah, is yours like a fist in the air? Because then that means can be many things. I don't know if that's the image. What's the image for you?
I think mine's just gonna say masturbation is political, and just let people ask questions. I think that's it. And then just a side note, it'd be fun to have these like. It would be fun to have slogan t-shirts per episode, and you have like a slogan, and then you just have an episode number.
Yes.
That would be fun.
If there are shirt makers out there, call us. Let's work this out. Totally. So that's it. Happy Masturbation Month.
Happy Masturbation Month.
We hope that you celebrate. We hope that you give yourself the gift of masturbation, your partner and partners the gift of masturbation. We hope that you talk about it in your families in ways that are appropriate so that you are normalizing it and not creating shame. Let's just, May masturbation celebration.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Confetti and champagne.
Confetti and vibrators and shower nozzles for everyone.
and comfy pillows for everyone.
Exactly.
Nice.
Exactly. Happy Masturbation Month, all. If you would like to share your masturbation stories or reactions to this conversation, then you can start a conversation on our Facebook group at We Are Curious Foxes. You can also visit our website at wearecuriousfoxes.com for blog posts on masturbation and episodes, blog posts, resources, all on related topics under the umbrella of love, sex, and relationships. You can also find bonus cuts, mini episodes, online workshops, and a whole lot more available to you on our Patreon at We Are Curious Foxes. We would love for you to share this episode with someone who you think needs it. If this conversation meant something to you, you can also leave us a review. You can like and follow us on Apple, Spotify, Audible, Stitcher, wherever you're listening. If you haven't already, please do that. Please let the podcast algorithm gods know that you are listening. Let your friends know that you're listening. Let your partners know that you're listening by sharing this, by rating, by leaving a comment. And then let us know. Send us an email or a voice memo at listening@wearecuriousfoxes.com. We would love to hear your stories, would love to hear your questions, and would love to hear your ideas for future episodes.
This episode is produced by Effy Blue and Jacqueline Mesla with help from Yamur Erkeshe. Our editor is Nina Pollock, who tolerates our mental masturbation every week. Our intro music is composed by Dev Saha. We are so grateful for their work, and we're grateful to you for listening. As always, stay curious, friends. Curious Fox Podcast is not and will never be the final word on any topic. We solely aim to encourage curiosity and provide a space for exploration through connection and story. We encourage you to listen with an open and curious mind, and we'll look forward to your feedback. Stay curious, friends.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.